Hey guys, that is a Training Tuesday, a show for those who want to improve in chess, episode number 3. So in the previous episode, we started a discussion of basic algorithm of making decisions in chess. So we discussed really basic things. So our algorithm contains of initial evaluation of the position to catch most important features of that position and to direct our thinking. Then creating a candidates list, accurate calculating of each line, of each candidate. And then again, an evaluation process just to compare and to pick up the best line in our opinion. So today we will continue this discussion. So I come up with some new portion of interesting examples. They will be a bit more complicated if compared to the previous show. And also we will be focused mainly on advanced techniques of calculation, because sometimes really basic things don't work. Okay, so let's get to the chess content and start with the first position that I've prepared to you guys. Okay, so in this position, as you can see, white's turn to move, and we start with the evaluation. So first, we have to understand the material balance. As we can see, white is down 3 pawns. However, white definitely has something to compensate. So white has pair of bishops, and what is more importantly, white has an advantage in development. So almost all white's pieces are already in the game, which means that white has some chances to come up with the attack probably, or with something else. But the main rule in such a situation, when you're down the material and you have an advantage in development, you have to be very active. So you have to create concrete and strong threats, because your opponent has less material involved in the game, so he has less chances to meet your threats properly. What else? We can see that since white has a pair of bishops, dark squared bishop has no counterpart, which means that dark squares in general are vulnerable in black's camp, and they might be your target, which might be interesting. Well, every time when you see a position with a pair of bishops, you have to understand that one of the bishops has no counterpart. So all those squares are vulnerable. Maybe they are not weak just from the very start, but they might be weak, might be vulnerable, and this might cause a problem to decide that defense. So dark squares. As for vulnerable squares and pieces, so we can see that in black's camp at the moment knight on e5 is vulnerable, so it is not protected. However, it is placed very good in the center. The same is about knight on a3. It is also not protected. And pay attention, both knights occupy dark squares that are potentially vulnerable in black's camp. So it is a very important thing that we have to notice and maybe to exploit. So now, when we understood that we have to be aggressive, we have to create strong threats quickly, because advantage in development, advantage in time is not a permanent advantage. It might disappear in a few moves when black completes a development. When we understood main features, so dark squares, vulnerable knights on e5 and a3, it's time to create candidates list. So just like we discussed during previous show, we have to start with checks, captures, and then to get to other active moves. So here in this position we have only one check. It is knight to f6, which looks interesting because if black captures, this makes black's king extremely exposed. So it's not a stupid check. As for captures, well, we don't have captures, normal captures I mean, so except for probably queen to d4, but this loses a queen with no compensation. As for other active moves, okay, let's see what could we do with dark squares. So another interesting idea here is to put the bishop on e7 because it is an active move attacking the rook and at the same time the knight on a3. So it looks like the most natural idea here. If we can pick up a material, why not to do that? So this is the first difference actually to our previous show, our previous episode. So it's not a strict, really strict rule to start with checks. So this position is not extremely sharp at the moment, so we can just spend some time on calculating most natural ideas like bishop e7, because this move is very active, it is very tempting, and what is good, it loses no material, so it can only pick up some material. So probably it makes sense in such a situation to start with the bishop e7, not with check on f6. So bishop goes to e7, what to do? If rook goes away, then bishop simply takes on a3, and okay, in this case, white has an extra minor piece. Black, of course, has a compensation, because in the initial position, black was just 3 pawns up. However, it might be not enough to compensate the minor piece. So it's better for black to save the knight instead of the rook. And after that, when we take on f8, we can see that white has an extra exchange. But black has still this great material compensation, and probably it is not enough for white. However, I must say that this bishop e7 is definitely playable move because, well, extra material, some great attacking prospects after, let's say, queen to h5, attacking the knight and pawn on h7. So this is playable. So in such a situation, you still don't have to get to this bishop e7 move, despite it looks natural and very promising. You have to stick to the algorithm. So one of the rules of that algorithm says never choose from the one. So okay, you still have another move in your candidates list, and it is knight to f6. You have to check if it works, because, well, maybe it gives you much more than just winning the material and so on. So let's concentrate on knight f6 calculation. It is check, so black has only 2 possibilities: to take the knight and to go away to the corner of the board. So let's start with the king to h8, because at first glance this move gives us very good possibility to get to h7 square, and in fact white wins easily after queen to h5. Just attacking h7, creating a concrete threat of a checkmate, and the only normal defense for black is h6, since pawn takes f6 leads to bishop f6 check, and after king g8, queen goes to h6, creating a threat of a queen g7 checkmate, and black simply has no defense. So all the pieces are far away, and majority of pieces are still in initial positions. So I'm not terribly surprised that white wins so easily here. But after h6, the things don't change. So again, white has very natural combination. Bishop takes on h6. It is not even a combination. It is a typical method of destroying king's position, so destroying king's shelter. Bishop simply takes on h6, creating a threat of a discovered check with a checkmate. If pawn takes the bishop, then queen takes h6 with the checkmate, because as you can see, g8 square is covered by the knight and g7 by the queen. So after bishop h6, it's better for black to take the knight instead. But in this case, again, we can take the rook. Another possibility is to make this check, bishop to g5, forcing the king to g7 or g8. After, let's say, king to g8, we take on f6, creating a threat of checkmate on h8. The only defense is knight to g6, after which queen goes to h6, and again, the same pattern. So queen g7, inevitable. After king g7, well, we start with this check, and after king g8 also take on f6, and two checkmates are common, h8 or g7. So white easily wins after king h8 move. So actually knight f6 forces black to capture the knight. It is the only move. So pawn takes, and now the most natural continuation is to recapture on f6, because after this move we can see that we are very close to creating this checkmating pattern. The only missing part of this mechanism is our queen on h6. So our next plan will be queen to h6. A question why we have to start with the bishop f6 here. Well, we don't have checks here, right? So according to our algorithm, the next stage is to calculate captures. And bishop takes on f6 is a capture. At the same time, it is an active move. It is a tempo move because the knight on e5 is attacked. So it suits our desires very good. So bishop f6 is just a natural move to come up with in our mind, of course, because we are on the stage of calculating this. So bishop takes f6. Now our next plan will be to get to h6 with the queen. At the same time, if knight, for example, from e5 goes away somewhere, then we will have a chance of queen g4 check, and it will be a checkmate if black has no piece to block our queen. Just for example, if knight goes to d7 now, then just queen g4 checkmate immediately. So after bishop f6, black actually has several options. So knight is under attack, queen h5, followed by queen h6 is our plan. So what to do? Two options: to protect the knight or to go away with the knight, but somehow to cover the g file to prevent queen g4 immediate checkmate. So black actually has only two options: knight to g6, for example, knight to c4 to protect this knight on e5, and probably queen to b5, just protecting the knight on e5. So for example, if queen to b5, okay, queen simply goes to h5. So as you can see, black did nothing to prevent our main plan, and now after knight g6 we just play queen h6, and well, black has no resources to prevent a checkmate. If after bishop f6 black plays knight to c4, just protecting the knight, okay, it's possible to continue with our plan, queen to h5 I mean. However, in that case, we have to understand that black probably will have something like knight d6, knight f5 idea to prevent our checkmate. So this gives black, as you can see, additional resources. However, I believe that queen h5 also wins, no questions, because if after queen h5, let's say knight d6, we can start with capturing the knight on e5 or something like that, and anyway, we will have almost winning position. But even better is just to capture the knight on c4, because we remember this knight on e5 can't go away from the initial position on e5 because it helps to prevent queen g4, and also it can't go away from g6 because it is the only square where the knight can protect the king if possible. So after rook c4, we just win the sacrificed minor piece back and win the game, because knight is still hanging, the same queen h5, queen h6 is coming, our rook became even more active, so now in any case we can even, well, we can take on d4 probably with the rook, and to add this rook to the attack on the king side, so position is winning. And black is still in a situation facing problems with the development, so black did nothing to make white's attack less dangerous and less efficient. So this says that after bishop f6, the only move is knight to g6. Just going away with the knight, black still has an extra minor piece, queen g4 check is prevented, and well, black is ready to continue the development or something like that. So the most natural move for us is, of course, queen to h5. It is our main plan. So queen to h6 is coming, and at the first glance, black simply has no defense. Because if rook goes away from f8, trying to give the king f8 square to escape, well, after queen h6, our queen will still control this f8, so this plan doesn't work. It's not possible, for example, to protect g7 square somehow, because queen is far away, knights are misplaced, so nothing actually works here. So at first glance, white wins. But it is a very dangerous situation. Again, remember that everything happens in your mind when you calculate this line. So you may be not very good in visualizing position. So you have to train this skill to visualize position correctly, of course. But it is also another psychological trap, so underestimation of opponent's resources. We discussed this psychological trap during previous show, and again, it is the same situation. So the basic layout for this problem. When you calculate a line in which you are about to make a very responsible decision, like here, because you sacrifice a minor piece after all, so it is a very responsible decision. If your attack doesn't work, you just lose the material and you will lose the game eventually. So in such a situation, you have to focus on opponent's resources, especially when you get to the point that you can't see a defense for your opponent. So in such a situation, you have to phrase the problem. So it is one of really interesting and efficient techniques in calculation. So in your mind, just to phrase a problem. So here the problem is kind of, okay, queen h6 followed by queen g7 checkmate. So how my opponent could solve this problem? So h6, g7. And just try to come up with some general solutions. For example, my opponent can solve this problem by preventing queen h6. The first general solution, which doesn't work here because h6 square is just impossible to control with black's pieces. Okay, another general solution, to control g7 square. Also doesn't work. We understood that black has no resources to control g7 square. To go away with the king from that checkmate in prison also doesn't work. So queen goes to h6 next move, and king is completely limited. Doesn't work. And finally, to break our checkmate mechanism. So our checkmate mechanism is based on a queen on h6 and bishop on f6. Actually, h6 is impossible to control, but what about f6 square? And here you can notice that black has an interesting resource. It is an e5 move. After which, as you can see, your bishop f6 is under attack of the queen from b6. And that is kind of interesting solution for black, because now, at first glance, we can't protect our bishop. If we can't do that, well, we never can play queen h6 followed by queen g7 checkmate, because this leads just to queen takes f6. Black has two extra minor pieces. White has no even a sign of attack, and well, black simply wins. So again, imagine that you found this resource in your mind while calculating the line. Another interesting psychological trap is that if you find something really great for your opponent, for example, your mood gets worse, and this affects your evaluation, and this affects your calculation process. So, well, you think, okay, he has a defense, come on, the whole line doesn't work. It is, by the way, the most common result of this problem. So you come up with this evaluation. So the whole line doesn't work. So it's not true. Well, sometimes it's true, but in many cases it is not. So how to solve this problem? Again, phrasing, just phrasing the problem. So in your mind, it could be just like that. Okay, I have a problem, so I need my queen on h6, but my bishop on f6 is hanging. At the same time, I have to be quick because my opponent is about to complete a development, and If it succeeds, then come on, I have no chances. I will probably lose the game. So this gives you an understanding you have a tempo move that protects your bishop, or at least breaks a connection between the queen and the bishop. And actually white has such a decision. It is rook to c6. So tempo move, right, attacking the queen, at the same time breaking the connection between the queen and the bishop. Rook is protected by the bishop, so if queen takes the rook, we just take the queen, and then again queen to h6. So looks like white wins. Actually, the only possibility for black to avoid a checkmate is to put the queen, guess where, on d8. Yeah, only move. Otherwise queen h6 followed by queen g7 checkmate. And after queen h6, let's say, queen takes f6 and rook takes f6. Well, white has an extra queen for only 2 minor pieces. Those pieces are not coordinated well, and white should win quickly here. So it was the first example of today's show. It was comparatively easy. Again, we saw some differences if compared to the previous show, if compared to our basic algorithm. So we started our calculation here not with check knight f6, the only check possible in this position, but with the bishop e7, because this move looked just the most natural, and actually it is a good idea to check the most natural move first. And only then we came to knight f6. And we discussed a very important problem, psychological trap of underestimating opponent's resources. So how to solve this problem, just to phrase the problem that your opponent has. This will help you to find some resources. Sometimes opponent's resources are really non-obvious and hidden. So this phrasing can help you to direct your thinking and to be just critical about opponent's resources and eventually to find them. And the same is for the situation like this after e5. So when you have a problem, for example, on the move number 3 or 4 of your calculation process, so when the whole line looks very promising but it doesn't work due to only one circumstance, come on, it's not the sign that the whole line doesn't work. Just again, phrase the problem and try to find a solution.